Hello everyone, welcome to Urbanscape Bangalore, and in this episode we will be looking at the pentas, a summer blooming plant that is a butterfly magnet. This is a native of the African continent, and that is why it is probably called the Egyptian star. This belongs to the Rubiaceae family, to which the gardenia and the ixora belongs to. This is a non-fragrant flower and has five-lobed petals, and hence the name penta. And this is one of the few plants that we have been growing in our garden for a very long time. And I still remember my first tryst with this plant was when I, along with my cousins, used to take the style out from the flower and we would taste the honey at the end of the style. You can grow this as a hedge plant if you want. This is a perennial, but with a caveat, which I will tell you towards the end of this video. So in this episode, we will look at some basic care tips and look at how to propagate this plant. So the first factor is sunlight. This plant will take full sunlight to partial shade but not full shade. It will bloom more profusely with more sun. Watering. Water this plant consistently during summers and winters. You can reduce watering since this plant tends to go dormant during winters and in many cases will also die if you're not careful. Fertilizing. The plant will love it if you give this a lot of organic feed like compost and vegetable waste. But otherwise also it does well without much attention, and that's why I love this plant. The next factor is pruning. Now, pruning is a harbinger of good health and longevity in this plant. So after summer and the rainy months and towards the onset of winter is when this plant will look sick and the bottom leaves will start drying. So you immediately need to give it a trim when the upper leaves are still green so that you can take cuttings of this plant after pruning to grow new plants. And I will show you the propagation of this plant in some time. If you let the plant dry completely during winter, then there are high chances of it dying. So two things you need to do is prune and take cuttings for propagation just in case. Pruning will also keep the plant look more compact, giving it a more controlled look, which I prefer. So up next will be potting mix. So use a well-draining potting mix that will allow the free drainage of water. So 40% sand, 40% compost and 20% garden soil would do. Now we will talk about pests. Pests on this plant are not too much. I have not seen mealybugs so much, but yeah, white flies can be a problem. But rain removes all pest pains anyway. It's the best season for all plants except for maybe succulents. So now let us look at the propagation of this plant. So when you see flowers have finished blooming and looks like this, you can take a healthy cutting from the plant. The sturdier the cutting, the better it would be. I'm just using a knife here and you can remove the lower leaves to expose the nodes and you can keep one or two leaves on top. Now you can cut the leaves like this to avoid water loss. Also remove the top dangling part and place the cutting in a well-draining potting mix towards the sides again to prevent loss of water. Water the plant and keep it in an east-facing location where it gets morning sun. And after a month, you would see new leaves on the sapling and tiny roots like this would have formed. To allow it to grow more roots and leaves, leave it as is for at least 2 to 3 months. Rains are the perfect time you can propagate these plants because of the constant wetness your plants can get. But if there is non-stop rain over a period of time, then that could also cause rotting. So be mindful nonetheless. And when spring sets in, you can replant this in a bigger container with some well-draining potting mix and the cycle of Pentaponus will continue. So folks, bring this beautiful blooming plant home to give your summers the color it deserves. So with this, we have come to the end of yet another episode of Urbanscape Bangalore, and I hope you've enjoyed this program. Additionally, you can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. The links are given below. So before I say goodbye, let me show you on how to enhance your work from home experience with some plans. So most of us must be working from home due to the COVID situation in the world. And I'm sure you must also be feeling that you are putting in more hours working from home than you would when you go to your workplace. So, to make life more easier for you while working, plans can give you that much needed reprieve from the crazy deadlines and load you may encounter every day. So, this is not my exact workplace since I'm using my office provided system, which I can't show on camera for security reasons. So, I'm just using my personal laptop here. So I have used non-draining containers like glass bottles with some pothos, monstera and turtle wine. I also have the terrarium and a fancy container with a snake plant. So with such arrangements, you don't have to be worried about water spillage since most of it is non-draining except one which is already in a plastic container and I can take it to the bathroom every time it needs watering and dry it thereafter and keep it back in this beautiful ceramic container. Also, to add some personal touch, I have added this reed diffuser, which I love because I'm a huge fan of aromatherapy and smells calm my nerves. So this is just an idea for those of you who have a brightly lit window next to your systems. Unfortunately, my plug points are in a place where there is no window, so I can't afford all this for myself. But I just wanted to give you a brief idea on how green we can make our makeshift office space, thereby increasing the so-called productivity and keeping oneself sane throughout this horrific time. Even if you have a single plant on your desk, then it can make a whole world of difference for you. However, remember that this is all a privilege because there are many in the country who have lost their jobs and have had to walk all the way home with tears in their eyes and cracks on their souls.